Chapter 6. No annulment, only divorce. Jeff took a cold shower after Anne left. The combination of the heat and the alcohol in his body was too much. He needed to cool down. After a shower, he felt relieved. He needed it badly. Suddenly he realized that he didn't have a change of clothes. The only solution he could come up with was to improvise. He hand-washed his underwear and hung it to dry in the bathroom. Jeff figured that Anne wouldn't be returning until the next morning, so he should be fine sleeping butt naked. My underwear should be dry by then. I'll call Ronald first thing in the morning to bring me a change of clothes. With that thought, he happily went to bed. Suddenly it dawned on him. He needed to let Ronald know of his whereabouts. Jeff proceeded to contact Ronald before actually going to sleep. Jeff gave Ronald a full account of what had transpired. He told him what he needed to be done during the contract signing. Once he was satisfied that everything was in order, Jeff turned off his phone, lay down on top of Anne's bed, and fell into a deep slumber. Ronald was shocked after processing what Jeff had informed him. After hearing the full details, he was unable to go back to sleep. He started searching for information about the girl his boss just married. He needed to make sure that this girl was not a con artist. He's afraid that she knows that Jeff is the CEO of Mega International Group and wants to scam him out of his money. As his assistant and a friend, he needs to protect his innocent boss, who's very inexperienced when it comes to women. Unfortunately, try as he might, Ronald had no success in finding out anything about Jeff's fake wife. The only conclusion he could come up with in his brain was, "She must not be from a well-known family. I can't find anything to save my life and my boss." Ronald was anxious about his boss's new wife. "Tomorrow, I will make sure to find out as much information as I can when she comes for the translation job," Ronald told himself, trying to comfort his troubled mind. Meanwhile, Jeff was too tired from the long flight from Asia. As soon as he lay down, he was in La La Land. He was in dreamland having a wet dream for the first time in his life when suddenly he felt a hand right where it's supposed to be. A very smooth hand was touching his little man. He wasn't sure if it was a dream or what, but it sure felt nice. He just took it as a dream. In his subconscious mind, he knew Anne went up to stay at a friend's house for the night. Jeff continued to enjoy the sensation he was feeling from Anne's hand, thinking it was all just a dream. Anne, on the other hand, didn't know what to do. It was too dark for her to see anything. Unable to see in the dark and unsure if Jeff was asleep or awake, she slowly moved her hand away from the pole like a body part and tried to get up, when suddenly Jeff grabbed her and embraced her like a pillow. What now? Anne was stunned and unable to move. She tried once more to move slowly, only to be pulled back into a tight embrace by the sleeping Jeff. Anne knew that Jeff had no clothes on, so she didn't want to startle him and wake him up in the process. She contemplated it for a while and decided to wait. Listening to Jeff's soft breathing, she was soon in deep slumber as well. Jeff woke up after a couple of hours. He suddenly panicked to find that he was hugging a person and not a pillow. His first instinct was to get up and turn the lights on, but he realized that he had no clothes on and couldn't use the bedspread. He and the other person were lying on top of the blanket. He waited for a moment to let his eyes get used to the dark, still trying to figure out the contours of the person next to him. Recognition dawned on his face. There's only one possibility, Anne. His fake wife was back for the honeymoon. Suddenly Anne turned around facing him, still deep asleep. Jeff's heart started beating so fast his mind went blank. What the heck? What do I do now? His emotions were going haywire, his thoughts running in different directions. He didn't know if he should go for it or forget it. Before going to bed, he had to take a cold shower due to the turmoil his body and mind were going through. Anne was now adding fuel to the fire by being in such close contact with him. His body seemed to have its own account. He started to feel a part of his body getting hard, harder, and a lot harder. Jeff contemplated for a while. However, after deliberating for a while, he decided against it. He couldn't take advantage of this innocent girl lying next to him. They barely knew each other, and he didn't want Anne to hate him for taking advantage of the situation. He thought of the hard life Anne seemed to be currently going through. He had to do something for her, to give her a better life. We can start by getting to know each other and go from there. I want her in my life forever. One way or another, this fake marriage in the long run will be a real one, Jeff promised himself. Jeff gave Anne a light kiss on her lips and didn't want to stop there. But saner heads prevailed, and making sure not to wake her up, he went to the bathroom to once again cool off. Once his body had calmed down and cooled off, he put his clothes back on, wet underwear and all, then laid back down next to his wife and went back to sleep. Anne was the first to wake up and realize that she had been snuggling with Jeff all night. Her face turned red with embarrassment. Even though we are married, this is not right. What would he think of me? He will think that I sneaked in here late at night on purpose so I can sleep with him. It's not good. Oh, it's too embarrassing. I better get out of here before he wakes up. Anne slowly removed Jeff's hand from hugging her. Jeff didn't do it consciously. It was an accident that they end up curled up together until morning. At least that was what Anne believed happened. She took a quick shower and quietly got dressed. She tiptoed to the small table, picked up a pen, and jotted down a note for Jeff, then left in a hurry. Sorry, got to run. See you later when I finish the job. It was still early, but she didn't want to stick around in case Jeff woke up. Anne didn't know how to face Jeff. She was too embarrassed and ashamed of what happened the night before. Jeff arrived at the hotel right before Anne without her knowing. He had already briefed his assistant Ronald on what to do next. Once he was confident that everything was in order, everything was clear and understood. He proceeded to the adjoining room and turned his laptop on to begin the contract signing. They needed an excuse to give to the other party for why Jeff was unable to attend. The idea was, Jeff had caught a cold and didn't want to spread it to everyone. Therefore, the contract signing would be through a conference video call, and the other party agreed. The translation finished to the point of perfection. Anne had fluently translated everything like she was speaking her native language, which left the other party fully satisfied. As promised, she would receive a bonus for doing a perfect job. As soon as the payment was received, she bid Ronald goodbye and left in a rush. She couldn't wait to go home. She couldn't wait to share the good news with Jeff, who was supposed to still be in her apartment sleeping. She had left in a hurry that morning trying to avoid Jeff, but now she couldn't wait to see him. On the way to the bus stop, for some odd reason, Anne felt like someone was following her. When she turned and looked around, she didn't see anyone. That was weird, she mumbles to herself, and then she let it go and continued to the direction of the bus stop. While she was waiting for the bus, suddenly, a thought came to her. Once I pay him, he will leave, take off just like what I did this morning. It made her sad, just thinking about it. Anne needed time to think about their situation and to find a solution to her dilemma. She thought about her best friend Leah, who had been missing in action since the night before. When it comes to relationships, Leah is an expert. She changes boyfriends about as often as she turns her underwear. She's the best candidate for this kind of situation. With that in mind, Anne hurriedly changed her direction to Leah's workplace. Anne arrived at the chapel where Leah worked. However, she was not around. She went and looked for the manager to ask if they know Leah's whereabouts, and to find out how to go about getting an annulment. The manager informed Anne that Leah had called and requested some time off. She was also told that for them to get an annulment, they have to file the document at the courthouse, and both of them must be present. However, for a small fee, he could do the filing for them. The man in front of her said the words she wanted to hear the least. Anne smiled sardonically, then told the manager, "If that is the case, I'll be back then. I will go get him and come back. Thank you." She then turned around and went toward her apartment to get Jeff. Anne arrived only to find an empty apartment, and there was no Jeff around. Where could he have gone? Did he leave for good? What do I do now? She was mumbling to herself almost in tears when suddenly she heard someone knocking at the door. Does she wonder who it could be? Could it be him? She asked herself as she ran to open the door nervously. The first word that came out of her mouth was, "Where have you been?" Anne asked Jeff, screaming at the top of her lungs, while her eyebrow was raised and frowning at the same, then yet still showing relief on her face. For the first time in Jeff's life, someone was scolding him like a nagging wife. The funny thing was, he liked the sound of her screaming voice. He only stood there, staring at her without saying a word. "You have not answered me yet? Where have you been?" Anne repeated herself. "I went out to get some food and a change of clothes. Then I realized I didn't have your entry code and didn't know your phone number, so I just walked around until now," Jeff explained to Anne. Meanwhile, he was thinking, why am I explaining myself? When did I ever explain to anyone my whereabouts? His face was showing a broad smile from ear to ear, watching Anne's reaction to his explanation. Once he confirmed that Anne was no longer upset, after hearing his explanation, he breathed a big sigh of relief. "By the way, why are you looking for me? Did you miss me?" Jeff jokingly said to Anne. "No. I was looking for you because I stopped by the chapel where we got married last night and asked the manager for the annulment process, and he told me that we both needed to be present," Anne explained. "Really? What else did he say?" Jeff asked casually. Jeff had no interest whatsoever in what the manager told Anne. He was merely trying to calm her. No matter what, he aimed to keep this wife. He would make sure they couldn't annul their fake marriage. Divorce will be the only way, and she will never get it in this life or the next. He thought of something, and he quickly took action. "Anne, I have a favor to ask. Would you hear me out?" he asked with a saddened face. "If I can, I will." "What is it?" said Anne, looking at Jeff but not seeing him. "You see, I'm in a dilemma right now. I lost my passport, and I have to wait for a week to get a temporary one before I can go back home." Jeff peeked at Anne's reaction. "Nothing. I don't have a place and very little money. So can I stay with you?" "A week should be long enough. I will make sure that by the end of the week, you will become fully fledged Mrs. Jeff Go." He began scratching his head, acting sheepish. Jeff had made all the arrangements ahead of time. He told his assistant to fly back home ahead of him. "If someone asks why I did not return, say that I have an important business deal. Should my grandfather ask, never, ever mention Anne." He ordered Ronald, who had no intention of leaving the country. "His grandfather will not accept if he finds out that his new wife is a nobody, a high school graduate, and an orphan at that." With sadness in his eyes, he bowed that he will pave her way to a better future. First, he will need to know what her plan was. No matter what, he will never give her up. His heart tells him that she's the only one for him, in this life and their next. Anne was in deep thought about Jeff's dilemma. Is he serious? He doesn't look like a person with little money. Looking at him right now, he's screaming rich. But why would he use that excuse? Maybe he's fallen for me? Yeah, right. In my dreams, maybe. Well, if you put it that way, what else can I say? Of course, you can stay with me till then, Anne agreed without hesitation. She felt happy that he used a lie that he lost his passport, and that they would have a week together before saying goodbye. Then Anne realized that she was supposed to compete in another city. "Would you like to accompany me to a singing competition to cheer for me?" Anne asked Jeff, hoping he would agree. Jeff acted like he was lost in deep thought. "Please, I have no one, and my best friend is currently MIA. You're as good as any," Anne pleadingly said with a sad look on her face. Jeff agreed in a heartbeat. This way, he would see how good she was at singing. If she was excellent, he could sign her up in one of his entertainment companies. Sounds like a unique plan to me. Chapter 7. Receiving and Standing Ovation. Traveling to the venue was exhausting for Jeff. Never before in his entire life had he ridden a bus. He wanted to rent a car, but Anne insisted that they didn't have the funds for a rental. Jeff couldn't do anything to convince Anne, so he just followed along with her. You know what they say? When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Jeff was ready to experience something that he would remember for his entire life. Anne was very nervous when she saw how many people were competing. There were at least 1,000, maybe even several thousand. The people who were waiting to get in formed in a line so long that Anne was contemplating just giving up on the whole thing. How am I ever going to register? This will take a whole day just to get a number and ID, she murmured under her breath. Suddenly she heard Jeff tell her, "Why don't you wait here? I'll be right back." Anne was confused and looked in the direction that Jeff went. What does he mean by that? Anne wondered. Jeff didn't give her a chance to reply. He just left and went in the same direction that people who already had their numbers went. A couple of minutes later, Jeff came back with what seemed to be a printed number and an ID card. "Turn around. Let me stick this to your back," he told Anne, who was still in shock. "There you go. You're all set. Let's go." Jeff was so proud of his accomplishment, not even realizing what he had just done. Anne was both too afraid to ask and speechless at the same time. She decided not to think about it and concentrated on the upcoming competition. "Let's go." Slowly, they made their way to the venue. Once they were inside the building, they were separated. Anne was ushered towards the area where the other competitors were waiting. and Jeff went to God knows where. VIP section. While Anne was waiting for her turn to sing, she couldn't help but think, how did Jeff manage to get me into the competition? Does he know someone? Who is he? Too many questions without any answers. I will need to ask him after the tryout. For now, I need to give it my all. This is my future. I need to take control of this situation. She put her mind towards the competition and started practicing. It was finally Anne's turn to sing. She was a little nervous, not because she wasn't confident, but because of Jeff. She was more worried about what Jeff would think of her than the competition. "Miss, it's your turn," the organizer told Anne. "Thank you." Anne made her way into the room where the judges were waiting. As soon as she stepped in front of the judges, one of them asked her age, if she had competed before, and the reason she had joined the competition. Anne proudly answered all the questions. "What song will you be singing for us?" one of the judges asked her curiously. "I will be singing my favorite song by my idol Celine Dion, To Love You More." Anne smiled sweetly, answering the judges. One of the judges said, "Go for it!" "Thank you!" Anne happily prepared herself to start singing. Meanwhile, Jeff was in the other room sitting comfortably, ready to listen to Anne's singing. The music started, and Anne went for it. She gave her all, and she sang a better rendition as compared to her idol. "Take me back in the arms I love. Need me as you did before. Touch me once again. And remember when there was no one that you wanted more. Don't go. You know you'll break my heart. I'll be waiting for you. Here inside my heart, I'm the one who wants to love you more." Jeff was stunned by her singing. She had the voice of an angel and a genuine gem. This is not good. I need to do something, or she will make the cut, and who knows what will happen then. He immediately called Ronald and instructed him to do something. Just as Anne was getting a standing ovation from the judges, Jeff finished talking to Ronald on the phone. "You better not screw this up, or you will be dead when I come back. You hear me?" Ronald was going crazy. He didn't know what was happening. 1 minute his boss was him to get her into the competition. Now he wants to make sure she doesn't move on to the next stage. "What the heck?" He immediately called the organizer to relay Jeff's order. "Yes, sir. We will make sure to do as you have ordered," the organizer replied respectfully, then left to speak to the judges. Ronald was wondering what Jeff's plan was. "I know this will not be good if Jeff's new fake wife finds out what he did. Oh well, it's his problem, not mine. Or is it? I'm going crazy. I wonder how good this girl is, for boss to be in this much of a panic. I guess I'll have to wait and see." Ronald continued searching the internet, trying to find any information about Anne. Anne was disappointed that she didn't make it to the second round. She couldn't understand why. "All the judges gave me a standing ovation, but I still got cut. How could that be?" She was lost and unable to comprehend what had happened. Anne slowly made her way out to where Jeff was waiting for her. Her disappointment was visible on her face. "Excuse me, Miss Wen, I'm one of the coordinators of this competition. I just wanted to tell you that your performance was excellent. It is a shame, but we will surely be in touch in the future, even though you didn't move on to the second round of the competition," she happily told Anne, with an excited look on her face. There's something wrong with this picture." However, as confused as she was, what could she say? She mustered up the sweetest smile she could, then thanked the person, turned around, and left without looking back. Right outside, Jeff was waiting. "Did it go all right?" he asked innocently, to not alert Anne of what he had done. Anne looked Jeff straight in the eyes with an accusatory look, then said, "No, thanks to someone, I didn't get in." Anne inconsolably sulked. "Does she know? I hope not." Jeff was about to say something to cheer her up when Anne corrected herself. "What I mean is no thanks to those judges." Jeff felt relieved when he heard her response. "Thank God. I thought she found out. If she did, I would be dead meat." "Why don't we find a place where we can stay for a while and turn this into a vacation?" Jeff suggested mischievously. Anne thought for a bit, then responded, "Sure, why not? It's not like I have someone waiting for me at home," she jokingly said while grabbing hold of Jeff's elbow and hooking their arms together. Chapter 8. Disqualified. They decided that they would stay a couple of days in the city, at least until the last day of the competition. If the organizers contacted her, she would still be in the area. They went sightseeing, then went for a walk at the beach, finishing at a restaurant overlooking the ocean. The whole time they barely said a word to each other. It was like they were both trying to sense each other's feelings. From time to time, Jeff would pause and look like he was about to say something. But then he would stare at her and pat her head like she was a little kid, and keep going. What was that all about? Anne was speechless at Jeff's actions. She had so many doubts and wanted answers, but she didn't know how she should approach it. That night, Jeff made sure she was not uncomfortable being in the same room and sleeping in the same bed with him. He gave her as much space as she needed and did not try to seduce her. He only said goodnight, lay on his side of the bed, and went to sleep. This disappointed Anne. Is he not interested in me? Am I that ugly? I guess I'm not his type. Anne lay on her side of the bed and tried to sleep with all those thoughts running through her mind. What Anne didn't know was that Jeff was doing everything in his power to stay as far away from her in the bed. God, please have mercy on me. Give me the strength not to jump her in the middle of the night. I don't want her to hate me. My patience is running thin very, very, very quickly. Just the thought of Anne being next to me. A part of my body is getting harder by the second. Ah. Jeff agonized while lying next to his wife, who was still thinking that he wasn't interested in her. It took a while before both of them were finally able to sleep. The next day, both of them were grumpy, and they did not even greet each other in the morning. They did their morning routines and ate breakfast without saying a single word. Anne started feeling sad and disheartened, while Jeff was getting anxious because of the uncomfortable atmosphere. The misunderstanding was getting out of hand. They both had expectations, but neither dared to make the first move. Finally, while they were preparing their things and getting ready to go back home, Jeff couldn't hold it in anymore. He waited until Anne finished packing, then grabbed her, one arm tucked under her legs and the other around her waist. He lifted her and carried her to the bed, then started kissing her passionately. Anne struggled at first, but after less than a minute, she began to kiss him back. Snoo-snoo. Whatever needed to happen will happen. Are you sure? Jeff asked Anne, hoping helplessly that her answer was yes. Anne was already too hot and ready. I have never in my entire life felt this sensation. Her hands were all over Jeff. He must be an idiot if he is asking me. What would he do if I said no? Would he stop? With his thing hard as a rock, you've got to be kidding me, Anne thought, then jumped on Jeff, taking off his clothes as if she'd gone mad. Does this answer your question? Anne took off all of her clothes, showing Jeff a sight that trumped even the most beautiful of wonders. This is my wife. I'm a lucky man, Jeff thought before he pounced on Anne, waiting for him on the bed. The scene in the room was X-rated to the max. Jeff and Anne were going wild for each other. They were both past the stage of no return, when they were about to get into the best part, and he was about to enter her. Ring! Both of their phones started ringing like crazy. Jeff didn't want to stop to answer his phone. Don't answer it. If it's that important, they will call back, he whispered to Anne while tracing the edge of her ears with the tip of his tongue. However, Anne put both her hands on his chest and pushed him so hard that he almost fell off the bed. I'm sorry. So sorry. I need to take this call. It could be crucial. She apologetically explained to the horny Jeff, who was still sprawled at the bottom of the bed, butt naked, member standing at attention. Anne quickly scrambled off the bed, wearing nothing but the sheet that covered the front of her body, grabbed her phone, and ran to the bathroom without locking the door behind her. What the F? Jeff thought while scratching his head. He was still recovering from the shock of being stopped when they were finally almost there. Now it's already over. The heat of the moment has flown away. He didn't know what to think. Jeff slowly got up as well and checked his phone to see who the idiot who had a death wish was. It better not be his assistant, or he would die a slow death when Jeff next met him. The pain I'm feeling is nowhere near what I will give to this caller. Jeff mumbled to himself with a crease between his eyebrows. The concern showed on his face as he checked the missed call. It was not from his assistant. It was from his grandfather's doctor. Something must have happened to the old man for his doctor to call me personally. It's in the middle of the night in Asia right now. He called the number back. Not even a few seconds later, someone answered. Hello, Jeff, is it you? Yes, it's me. Do you know what time it is in Asia right now? It would be 2 a.m. if you didn't notice, he told the other person gruffly. I know. But that's not what's important right now. It's your grandfather. He's had another heart attack and is in critical condition. He wishes to see you before he passes. You need to return as soon as possible, you hear me? The doctor informed Jeff with anxiety and concern in his voice. Are you sure? You're not in cahoots with my grandfather to get me to come back early? Jeff questioned him intensely. No, it's for real. Why would I be calling you in the middle of the night for a prank? I have better things to do, you know, like saving people's lives. He tried to make a light joke to ease Jeff's anger. All right, I will be on my way back first thing in the morning. I should be back in 2 days. Jeff assured the doctor, then hung up the call. Jeff knocked on the bathroom door. Knock, knock. Anne, are you about done? We need to go. Anne replied innocently in a slightly loud voice. I'll be out in a minute. I'm a little sweaty right now, so I'm going to take a shower, okay? Anne was wondering why Jeff was in a rush to leave. Hello, are you still there? The call was from her friend Leah, the one that had been missing for a while. Leah met a guy that night and hooked up with him. She spent a whole week on a cruise to the Bahamas with the guy she met. Leah was so drunk and in lust that she accidentally dropped her phone into the ocean. Leah had to wait until she got off the ship to get a replacement phone. She was shocked by how many missed calls she had from Anne. She had forgotten about Anne's dilemma and ran off without a word. This is not good. Not good at all, Leah thought to herself. Where are you? Were the first words that came out of Leah's mouth. Do you know how worried I was? I didn't hear from you for a week, and I am right in front of your apartment, and you are not answering the door. Leah was acting like a mother hen scolding Anne. Tell me, did you run off to another country with the man you married? I'm just kidding, all right, Leah playfully told her. That's thought since my friend seems to forget about me every time she meets a good-looking guy. Maybe I should move to another country, Anne jokingly replied. Leah, you're the one who's been missing for the whole week. What are you saying? I called you several times, knocked on your door, but you never answered. So how am I the one at fault? Oh, my bad. I forgot that I was the one who went missing in action. I'm sorry. Please forgive me this one time, all right? I promise I will never do it again. You will be my priority. Men don't exist to me anymore. Leah told Anne with a serious voice. By the way, where are you right now? Leah asked with a suspicious tone. I'm in another city. I went for the singing competition. I didn't make it to the second round, though, Anne replied. She chose not to inform Leah about Jeff being with her the whole time. Leah was sad for her friend, but did her best to cheer her up. Don't worry, there will be other chances. It's their loss, not yours. Hearing Leah's supportive words made Anne feel a little better. But what should I do about the guy out there? How am I going to face him? Oh, it's too embarrassing. Anne's face began to turn red just thinking about Jeff being butt naked and sprawled at the bottom of the bed. That image is too much. Chapter 9. Getting Paid Handsomely. Anne didn't receive a call from the coordinator of the competition, so she was disheartened. She was looking forward to receiving a request or a second chance. Well, maybe they're not interested in me. With so many other competitors that day, they probably forgot about me as soon as I left. She sighed deeply, and Jeff didn't know what to do to comfort her. Anne was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't even realize that Jeff had been staring at her the whole time. Jeff was contemplating if he should tell her now or wait until they arrived at her apartment. It pained him to see the expression on her beautiful face. He could sense that something was troubling her right now. She looked like a little lamb on the way to the slaughterhouse because of the way she kept sighing. It was too cute. Jeff was so in love, and his heart was aching so much. Jeff tried hard to get Anne's attention to no avail. She just ignored him and continued staring into thin air. By the time they arrived at Anne's place, it was already late at night. They were exhausted and hungry from the long trip. They didn't have a chance to stop anywhere to eat dinner. The only thing they had all afternoon was some chips and soda. Would you like some noodles? I'm planning on having some, Anne asked Jeff. Jeff replied while nodding. He was in deep thought about what they should do on the sleeping arrangement. I'll take a shower first while you're cooking. Is that okay? Anne didn't answer, so Jeff took it as a yes. While Jeff was in the shower, Anne made a call to Leah and asked if she could spend the night at Leah's apartment. However, Leah's new boyfriend was there, and Anne couldn't sleep over. In the meantime, Jeff had finished taking his shower and was at the bathroom door. He overheard the conversation between Anne and Leah. It left him devastated to hear that Anne was not willing to spend the night with him. Anne finished making the noodles, then started sorting the mail that had accumulated while she was away. Outstanding bills, previous unpaid bills, and even more bills. Anne was getting more and more upset by the minute, when suddenly one particular envelope came to her attention. She contemplated whether or not she should open it. The envelope was from Harvard University, one of the most prestigious schools in the country, where only 6% of applicants got accepted yearly. Many famous people have graduated from Harvard. If she didn't get accepted, she would be devastated. Her dream of becoming a singer was already down the drain. If she didn't get accepted into Harvard, her life was over. Jeff couldn't stand it any longer and grabbed the mail from her hand and tore it open so he could read it. "What the heck? Hey, it's mine! Give it back!" Anne tried to take it back from Jeff, going around his body, trying to reach it. Jeff just kept on reading it, and then stopped. He smiled and said, "You got it. You're in. Ha ha ha." He was so happy for Anne. What did you say?" Anne jumped up and down, then hugged Jeff. "Really? Did I get accepted? Ha ha ha." Jeff handed the letter to Anne so she could read it. He then sat down and started eating his noodles without a care in the world. Shouldn't he be happy for me? Anne thought while looking at Jeff with sadness in her eyes. "Jeff, we need to talk," Anne told him in almost a whisper. "All right," Jeff replied. "I know you said you need time until you got your new passport, but the thing is—" Jeff interrupted her. "Say it, why don't you? You want us to get an annulment ASAP, right? No problem. We'll do it first thing tomorrow, but tonight let's get some rest, okay? I'm exhausted," Jeff said mischievously. "All right. As long as you understand, we will go tomorrow then. Hurry up and finish eating so I can clean up, and then we can go to bed. We need to get up early to get an annulment," Anne excitedly told Jeff. Jeff hurriedly finished eating his noodles, while at the same time hatching a plan. "Whatever it takes, you want to annul this marriage on account of no consummation? Yeah, right. We'll see about that." He hurriedly prepared for the evening to come. Anne had no idea what he had planned to do all along. All was agreed and set that they would file the annulment the next day. However, Jeff was making plans to make sure that they are not able to annul their marriage. He plans on marking his territory. "I will go take a shower first, all right?" Anne told Jeff, who's in deep thought about his plan. "Go ahead. I will do the dishes while you're taking a shower." With the thought of the acceptance letter from Harvard, Anne took her shower, singing happily. Unknown to her at the same time, Jeff has a plan that would change her life forever. Anne finished her shower and opened the shower curtain. She was in for a shock, for Jeff was in the bathroom brushing his teeth, smiling and whistling while doing it. She hurriedly covered herself with the towel and shyly sauntered from behind Jeff. Suddenly he turned around and grabbed her, and immediately sealed her lips with a kiss. "I have been longing to kiss you ever since that night," Jeff mumbles. He then kissed her hungrily, as if he doesn't care if she doesn't know how to return his kiss. It was apparent to Jeff that Anne has no experience in kissing, and it turns him on much more. Anne was startled at first and tried to push him. "Jeff, stop it. What are you doing?" However, instead of stopping, Jeff slipped his tongue inside her mouth, and she released a gentle groan. The kiss was too intense for an inexperienced Anne. She started getting hot. Jeff was so engrossed in the kiss that he had a hard-on as soon as he touched Anne. He was already burning with desire and could no longer think straight. They slowly made their way to the bed, still intertwined with each other, while they continued to kiss passionately. He could feel she's starting to get used to his kiss and feel more relaxed. Jeff laid her down gently, took the towel that wrapped her body, and tossed it aside. He then starts taking his shirt off and pants. Anne took a peek and could not stop admiring his abs. 6, no maybe 8-pack. He is so masculine, like Adonis, the male god. Jeff's heart was filled with so much desire and burning with so much passion. He was doing the same thing, admiring Anne's young and beautiful body, skin so smooth that it was driving him wild. He started kissing her from head to toe and stopped in her midsection, which made Anne cries out with pleasure. He went back up and gently brushed his lips down her neck, while his hand was down on her mounds, rubbing her clit softly. He made sure that Anne was ready and wet before he positioned himself to enter her. Slowly, at first, barely going inside her, making sure that she's wet and ready to accept his big hard shaft. Soon enough, his whole thing was inside her after several attempts. Anne cried in pain, and that stopped him from continuing. He stayed there fully erect inside of her, waiting for the pain to subside. He didn't know if he should keep on going or stop. When Jeff was about to pull it out, Anne holds onto his shoulder tightly, almost scratching his back. It was a signal for Jeff to continue to thrust once again. He could sense that the pain was now gone and replaced by pleasure. Anne let out a light moan. When Jeff heard Anne moan, he started to thrust his full length faster and pumping it harder. Anne was so tight, and he quickly felt the bilt on his groin and couldn't help himself and groan along with her. Jeff wanted the moment to last forever, but he could feel himself near to the climax. He wanted Anne to reach her orgasm first before he could make his release. Once Anne reaches her peak, Jeff had to pull out since they were not wearing any protection and cannot take the chance of her getting pregnant. He then let it all out, right outside on top of her mounds. It was a wild, wild, wild night in the West. After it was over, Anne was sore and tired, while Jeff was ecstatic and satisfied. The next morning, Anne was sore all over her body when she woke up. There was no Jeff next to her. Was it just a dream? But I'm so sore down there, so it did happen. We did it. Anne was embarrassed at how lusty she was the night before. Now they need to talk. They cannot annul the marriage now. They will need to file for divorce instead. Anne thought sadly. Unfortunately, there was no Jeff around. Maybe he just stepped out and will be right back, she thought to try to convince herself in the process. What Anne didn't know was that Jeff had left for good. After waiting for a while, she started to worry. She got up and looked around the apartment if Jeff had left any note at all. When she did not find any, she went to the bathroom to clean herself up, and that's where she saw a sticky note in the mirror. Take care of yourself, be a good wife, and don't even think about it. That's all it said. What the F? He took my virginity first to ensure that we consummated our marriage, then ran off. Anne was now enraged and ready to go after Jeff if only she knew where to look for him. This is great. Just great. Stupid me for believing he had fallen for me. When in reality, it was just one of those wham-bam thank you ma'am or fuck you and thank you, what a jerk. Anne was inconsolable. What was that don't think about it? What does he even mean by it? Anne was fuming mad. She was so shocked and stunned that she stayed staring at the note for a long time, then started crying when she realized she had fallen for him and his lies. Once she calmed down, she got dressed and started cleaning. Chapter 10. Letting everything go, the scumbag is now in her past. Anne thought of what had recently transpired and decided to let everything go. As the saying goes, the past is not the present, and the future is whatever you want it to be. Jeff the scumbag is now in her past, and shall remain there. For her present and future, she will start concentrating on her college education to have a better future. She's a smart young lady, with a high IQ, and she refuses to let this setback drag her down. She will take it, and just put it in her lesson learned file. In the subsequent days, she started preparations for college. She went to visit the school to attend the mandated 1 week of orientation, and got everything taken care of. After getting her assigned dorm and picking all the classes she needed for the semester, she headed back to her apartment to pack everything, talk to her landlord about ending her lease, and lastly to see her friend Leah and update her on the recent events in her life. Leah was excited and sad at the same time. She wanted to be in the same school as Anne, but she did not get a full scholarship and ended up getting into the next best school instead. Unfortunately, the school is in the next city, an hour away from Anne, and that made her sad. On the other hand, she was excited to hear what had happened in Anne's life in the past weeks. Anne went into all the details of the events. They never kept secrets from each other, even concerning the fake relationship. After finding out that Anne did the deed with Jeff, Leah teased her nonstop, which made Anne upset for a while. After promising each other to visit at least once a month and keep in touch as much as humanly possible, they said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. Anne was finally adjusting to her college life. She was busy since she had a full load. She also had to find a part-time job off campus working on the weekends, and sometimes during weekdays when she had no classes. Her schedule was packed, and she was functioning on autopilot. From time to time she would accidentally think of a particular person. It still hurts, but she would shrug it off and continue working towards her goal of a better future for herself. A couple of months went by when Anne suddenly received a message. It was the coordinator of the talent singing competition. Anne was in class when the call came through so that she couldn't answer it. She checked her phone as soon as the class ended. The coordinator wanted to meet with her and discuss the possibility of signing a contract with them. "Is this for real?" she wondered aloud. Anne called Leah excitedly. "Girlfriend, you need to head out here. I have wonderful news. You will not believe it when you hear it." "What is it? Tell me. You got me all riled up. You need to confess right now. Did you meet a boy and are now pregnant?" Leah asked her jokingly. "You're nuts. No, it's something else. It's about the singing competition I joined before, remember? Well, they contacted me and want me to sign an exclusive contract with them. Are you in as my manager?" Anne excitedly explained the details. Leah did not even have to think about it. She agreed in a heartbeat. She had promised Anne that if she ever got into the entertainment industry, she would be her manager. It seems time had come to keep her word. Leah was excited for Anne. They discussed where and when they would meet, to strategize, and do some research on what to ask for, and what not to overlook when getting into a contract with companies in the entertainment industry. Keeping in mind that they had zilch experience in a contract signing, Leah would probably have to look for some pro bono lawyer to give them advice. On the other side of the world, Jeff was on the phone talking to Mega International Agency's branch director of talents. "School is her priority. The rest is just secondary. You got that?" he sternly informed him. "I understand. Rest assured, CEO Go. Her public exposure will be minimal. It will only be enough to pique people's curiosity. We will train, prepare, and get her ready for a full launch of her singing career after she graduates from college," the director of talents replied. "This is just a means to pave the way for her career." You better not screw this up or else," was all Jeff said before he hung up.